Hello, friends, and welcome back to Weird Wednesdays, where we dive deep into the eerie and the unexplained. Tattooed Biker here with you, and you've landed on a spine chilling episode tonight. I've received some fascinating emails from viewers sharing their real life encounters with the paranormal. Get ready to experience some goosebumps as we read these perplexing tales. So grab your EMF readers and let's ride into the paranormal. Hey, Tattooed. Okay, first up, I have some other stories, too, from my time living in this house, but this one is the first one I'm sending. My mom's home that I grew up in has always been haunted. Every day and night, there's very loud footsteps, and occasionally something more spooky would happen, like hearing voices. I'm not the only one who's experienced these things. My mom, dad, boyfriend, and even friends have all heard some weird stuff. But there was one thing in particular that would terrify me the most. Almost every night when I lay in bed, I would feel this gut-dropping, heart-pounding fear and think that I was just being ridiculous and afraid of the dark. But I could swear that I saw a young girl in my room, in the shadows, usually under my bed. She had dark hair, pale skin, and big, wide black eyes. I would be almost hyperventilating under my covers, peeking out at her through the tiny breathing hole. I would lay there, paralyzed in fear, until I either eventually made a mad dash to my mom's bedroom or inevitably fell asleep in my own bed. I could never work out if she was actually there or if it was just me being already afraid of our creepy house and just imagining things. I thought this because nobody else ever saw her but me. The years went by and these nightly episodes continued. I felt like I was being terrorized by this girl, but all she ever did was stare at me. My bed was right next to a mirrored cupboard, so I could see her lying under there, literally inches from me. It still makes my skin crawl thinking about that. Anyway, it somehow got even worse as time went by. I swear that she always seemed to be the same age as me. When I was small, so was she. When I was 12 and a bit taller, so was she. I got more and more scared of her realizing this, and when I was about 15, I basically never slept alone at my mom's anymore. I was always visiting my dad, staying with friends, or having them over. I eventually forgot about the creepy girl and decided that she mustn't be real. After all, there were other ghosts here that other people saw, but nobody ever mentioned her. I also had a very bad fear of the dark as a kid, so that must be it, right? I even started sleeping alone in my room again after a while. That creepy feeling always remained, but Mom's house always felt that way. So I just refused to look in that mirror at night ever again. Now fast forward to now that I'm in my early 20s, life is good. I live in my own place that's not haunted. But unfortunately, it doesn't end there. My mom called me in the morning as she usually does to say hi, but she sounded a bit off. She said, "You're going to want to hear this. Something happened to Steve last night that was really creepy." To cut the long story short, Steve is her boyfriend and he isn't a ghost believer. I think that Steve has always just tried to ignore the very obvious sounds that you hear over there at night. I think they creeped him out too. Well, this night, Mom and him were watching TV on the couch when the footsteps were much louder than ever before. Steve tried to tell Mom that someone was upstairs in her house, and she laughed, saying, "Oh, it's just a ghost. I've been telling you, they're real." Steve went a bit quiet then, probably trying to rationalize with himself that ghosts aren't real. Not long later, Mom went to bed, but Steve stayed up to watch more TV. After a while, the noises were too much for him, so he switched the lights off to go upstairs to bed. This is when things got strange. From the shadows of the now dark living room, Steve saw a shape begin approaching him. He climbed the stairs, going faster and faster as the figure gained on him. It was the girl. He could see her clearly now. She followed a few meters behind him all the way to Mom's bedroom. He was now basically running, and he shut the door firmly behind him, trying to escape to Mom's bed like I had so many times as a kid. After Steve made it to bed, the door cracked open, and the girl stuck her head in through the gap, looking straight at them for a long time, before slowly leaving and closing the door again. I asked Mom, all my hairs now standing on end, how old was she? Mom recalled that Steve said that she looked to be in her early 20s. My stomach dropped and tears prickled my eyes. So she is real, I whispered back. There was something very sinister about this ghost. I think that's why I'm so creeped out and upset that she seems so real. The other ghosts at Mom's are still creepy, but not evil feeling like her. What do you think? Signed, Liz. Number 2. Dear Tattooed Biker, this 100% happened to me, and in fact, I have some other stories I may send you. I guess I'm what you'd call a sensitive. Some years ago, I was at a biker party. My dad is in Marine Corps biker clubs. Think burly men with beards and leather vests, drinking beer and barbecuing. Anyway, every person is dressed that way. T-shirt, leather vest, blue jeans, and boots. This house was somewhere around Pensacola, Florida, and it was deep in the woods around a creek. Since we were outside, I asked where the restroom is. The wife of the biker who owns the home tells me, and I go alone upstairs, where not a soul was. I turn to go into the bathroom, and I'll never forget what I saw. A tall man with black, slicked hair, white button-up dress shirt, black slacks, and dress shoes was leaning over the sink and looking into the mirror. Totally solid, not moving at all, and looked like a living human being. I thought he was dressed so strange for the party, but I ended up not using the restroom because he was in there. I go back to the lady that told me where the restroom is, and I ask who the man was in the bathroom. I described him, and her eyes went huge, and she looked spooked. She then told me the principal of a school had lived and died in that home, and I had described him perfectly. She told a lot of people around us. It was so remarkable at the time. I didn't go back upstairs alone after that. That is the only solid apparition that I've ever seen. Signed, Lisa. Number 3. Hello, TB. Hope you are doing well. I wanted to share a weird experience I had about 1 or 2 years ago when I stayed at my parents' house. It was in the evening, and I was in my room eating. At this point, I was feeling pretty well and rested. I didn't take any kinds of drugs and had enough sleep. I finished my supper and was leaving my room to bring the dishes to the kitchen. For this, I have to go 7 meters straight, and then turn left and go straight again. At the turn, I can go left again, and I'm at the door of the living room. That door was slightly open, and lights were on, so there was a little bit of light shining right at the end of the hallway opposite to where I'm standing. As I step out of the room, I see on the other side a translucent figure standing in the light, and since I was a little bit further away, I was pretty confused. I could see the objects behind it. It wasn't facing me, but the cracked door of the living room. My father sits at an angle, and he could actually see through that cracked door, right where the shadow was standing. My mom has a desk there as well, where she could have seen that. And the posture of the shadow was pretty clearly looking at the door, but it just looked like a human. My parents were talking inside, and they never realized. I stood there, completely confused. Then the shadow turned its head right towards me and looked directly at me for a moment. And then it turned completely towards me and started walking. There wasn't any red eyes or anything, but its movement was very clear and three-dimensional. Well, it started walking towards me. And when I think back to it, it was very clearly a shadow figure, but in my confusion, I thought it was my brother. He was also at home, and his room is next to mine. That was the only thing that made sense to me. And since the hallway is pitch black, I was waiting at my door, so I didn't bump into him with my dish. My door was ajar, and my computer screen was on, so there was a little bit of light in front of me as well. It was very clearly walking towards me, and at this point it all made sense. It was my brother. but actually not. They had the same height, but that thing had no visible face. Just a translucent shadow, but with all the human features. Mind you, when it locked eyes with me, it didn't look away, not even once. I can remember my thought process pretty well. I look at the ground, and after 2 or 3 seconds, I'm thinking to myself, what's taking so long? Why is he walking so slowly? That thing wasn't even at the halfway point, and I look again and see how slowly and nonchalant it walks. It kinda walked a little funny. Not in a supernatural way, but it kind of used its shoulders and arms. But it still moved just like a human. I looked at it annoyed, and my next thought was, why is he staring me down like that? Even though I couldn't see a face or eyes, its head was locked onto me the entire time. Like a second later, it crossed the halfway point, and I just kept looking at it and thinking, man, that hallway is really dark. I would see the whole body of the shadow completely in the pitch black. It even stood out in the darkness. Now only about 2 or 3 meters away from me, and then it stepped into the screen light coming from my computer screen in my room. And that's when I realized it wasn't my brother. I didn't move an inch as I was in shock, and it stopped in front of me, like about a meter away, now standing very visible in the light of my computer, its head still locked right on mine. It stopped for a moment, and then it looked like it took a small step back with one foot, so it was standing a little bit vertically towards me. There I could see that it was completely three-dimensional. And suddenly it just vanished right in front of my eyes. Almost like when a camera loses focus. Almost like turning into a mist in matters of milliseconds. I'm in my 20s, and something like that never happened to me before. From the position and angle at the beginning, it looked and acted like it was trying to catch the attention of my father, who could see through the cracked door, and when it noticed me, it kind of looked confused or surprised for a moment before it started walking towards me. It surely took its sweet time when it walked. That ghost was perfectly visible for around 7 to 10 seconds. Thanks for reading this. Signed, Liam. Number 4. Hey biker, I don't really believe in ghosts, but I also have never hallucinated before. Anyway, years ago, I was taking my parents' dog out to the front yard to go pee before putting her to bed. I was staying with them for a couple of months, and about 26 or 27 at the time. Standing in front of a tree was the dark figure of a man. It was nighttime, so I didn't think anything of the fact it was just a pure black figure. He was wearing a wide-brimmed hat like my dad has, so I naturally assumed it was him. I was a little confused as to why he'd be outside, so I called out to him, "Hey, Dad." But I didn't hear anything back. He just stood there as if he didn't hear me. I called out again. Still nothing. Then I heard my dad talking, and it was coming from my parents' bedroom. So I realized whoever was standing there was a complete stranger on the property. Then he bent over and motioned to their dog as if asking her to come over. And even though she was standing on the driveway, she started peeing, and her legs were trembling as she was about to collapse. It was odd that she wasn't barking. It was as if though she was just paralyzed in fear. I then got a closer look and could definitely see this person wasn't a person, but rather just a silhouette of one. I ran as fast as I could back inside. I came out just a moment later to look for the thing. I didn't see it again. The only trace of the experience was the dog pee on the driveway. Rationally, I know what happened was the fact that I was afraid if what seemed like an intruder in their dog could probably sense that. I'm surprised she didn't bark, though. She's never acted this way to being scared. She's always just barked like crazy when she was scared. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or evil spirits. However, it kind of feels like something along those lines. I had assumed it was a hallucination, even though I have no history of those. But it's the only explanation that I have. Frankly, I just brushed it off for several years. Then I was watching a video compilation of scary stories one year on Halloween and heard of the Hat Man, and how people all over the world have seen pretty much exactly what I had. I'm still pretty secular when it comes to ghosts and stuff, but I'll be damned if hearing that other people saw the exact same thing wasn't the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me. It felt like something that a character would come across in a horror movie, not real life. I just wanted to share. Signed, Rick. And there it is. That wraps up our journey into the unexplained. I hope you enjoyed these bone-chilling paranormal encounters shared by my incredible viewers. Remember, if you have any uncanny stories that you'd like to share, don't hesitate to drop me an email. It's in the description. Your first-hand experiences make our community stronger. Make sure to like this video and leave us a comment down below, letting me know your thoughts on these stories. And of course, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to never miss an episode of The Unexplained and Unsolved. Until next time, stay curious, stay vigilant, stay safe, and I'll be seeing you on down the road a ways. Biker.